Welcome back, friendly neighbors and Spidey fanatics. It's time to be a critic. Now, don't get me wrong, we love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. He's the most realistic and likable Spider-Man we've had on screen yet. A fresh new take on the character with new friends, a different origin of how he became the friendly neighborhood wall crawler, and more importantly, we don't see Uncle Ben get shot for the millionth time. However, there are some things fans like us want to see in future MCU Spider-Man movies going forward, such as... Peter Parker was a nice surprise when he was announced to be in Captain America Civil War. He fit in surprisingly well. However, after that, we never really saw Spider-Man be his own man. We see him go through typical teenage stuff in Homecoming and Far From Home, but there was always S.H.I.E.L.D. or Iron Man present to bail him out. We've never really seen Peter figure things out on his own. We'd like to see a scenario or an event where he can't rely on Happy, Ned, or even Mary Jane. He needs to be his own man. Spider-Man is famous for figuring out tough situations on the fly. He's a genius scientist with more smarts than a 16-year-old knows what to do with. He should be able to figure out how to fight high-tech villains or even figure out the plans of other villains' schemes. With the Avengers-sized cast of Spider-Man 3, I think we're set for more team-up movies well into the future. In the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man's identity as Peter Parker was exposed by Mysterio. Now, I know this is the MCU and nothing gruesome will happen with the backlash, but in every other version of Spider-Man, Peter was terrified to tell anyone about his identity. The fear of having one of his arch enemies find out and hurt the people he loves is a real fear. And then MCU Spider-Man takes off his mask every chance he gets without hesitation. His aunt knows, but he doesn't really seem to care. Ned knows right off the bat from an accidental walk-in, and Mary Jane knows because apparently she's the only character in the entire Marvel multiverse that can put two and two together. Peter leaves, Spider-Man shows up. Oh, I wonder who Spider-Man is. So here's where our changes would come in. Peter letting people know his secret life should have repercussions.
I'll kill you and everybody you love.
Why not make those threats real? Have a villain like the Vulture or Scorpion stalk one of Peter's loved ones and come after them. Make them a bargaining chip for Spider-Man's defeat. Spider-Man would live in constant paranoia, not knowing what kind of villain would come after Peter or his loved ones. Having MJ as a bargaining chip or hostage against Spider-Man would be an amazing scene to watch, given how Peter is clearly in love with her and MJ is on board with the idea of her boyfriend being an Avenger. But maybe after getting caught on the crossfire too many times, she would walk away from Peter and never wants to be part of that world again. Lots of repercussions to play out here. Who knows how it could go? Ever since Venom was released in 2018, people have been having conversations about Venom versus Spider-Man and how the two titans would clash. Well, I have a theory. Now, keep in mind, this is fan fiction. We don't know any inside scoops or anything, but what if Eddie Brock was assigned to investigate Peter possibly being Spider-Man? Eddie befriends Peter not as a reporter, but as a concerned human being who knows the feeling of wanting to be left alone after people are trying to get something from you. The symbiote inside Eddie can smell Peter's hatred, anger, and fear. It's almost excited by this new smell in a human. So maybe a piece of symbiote crawls into Peter and makes Peter a temporary host to test out this new human. I can see Peter giving into his darker emotions and neglecting the people around him to become a more ruthless and unforgiving superhero. Now, I can't build on this theory more now because we have yet to see Venom 2 at the time of this recording, so we don't know what type of person Eddie Brock and Venom will be in the upcoming movies. We'll just have to wait and see. However, I have to say, when these two finally fight on screen, it will be an amazing battle, worth checking out on that IMAX screen if theaters ever open back up again. In the beginning, I said that Peter should have less S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers presence around him, and I stand by that. However, the MCU seems like they're setting him up to be Tony's legacy. He's the one who's supposed to one day lead the Avengers. On one hand, you have the fate of New York and everyone around relying on you. And on the other hand, you have a secret government putting pressure on you to become an Avenger at their beck and call. And you're not even 21 yet. Living up to the legendary Iron Man legacy is a challenge all on its own. Now, we don't expect Peter to become the CEO of Stark Industries, but I think it would be cool for Peter to make use of Tony's gadgets while he has access to them. We've seen that he's capable of making weapons and tools that help him in battle. Every future villain will present a different challenge, which will then equal new suits. Sooner or later, Peter will have a collection of battle-designed suits just like Tony had. But with all of the tools he has access to, maybe it just won't be enough to save a civilian or maybe even a loved one. That pressure should make Peter become conflicted on the type of hero he wants to be. Either he saves the people that he knows he can save, or he takes risks and tries to save everyone. Peter is always challenged when his villains get the upper hand on him. Everyone knows that one day we will see Spider-Man and the Sinister Six do battle. If you want to see how powerful and challenging the Sinister Six are, click on that link right above for our video on that topic. When the Sinister Six finally assembles, the challenge and threats will become even more imminent and dangerous. Now, depending on who the Sinister Six will feature in the movies, each of them will affect Spider-Man's life differently, either mentally, personally, physically, or emotionally. And that, in turn, will cause Peter to overthink things and become vulnerable. He will lose someone close to him, someone he relies on, either for support or comfort. I think it'll be a bold move for the MCU to kill off either MJ or Ned. Now, I know it's starting to sound like we want MJ out of the MCU, but that's not the case. We actually love Zendaya as the new Mary Jane. But you can't deny that having this type of character for Peter to either lose or have to walk away from will make for a heart-wrenching story if done properly. Ned is Peter's best friend, but I don't think they'll kill off Ned based on how much the fans adore him. Furthermore, I think depending on the danger of the villain, I could see Peter sidelining Ned out of fear of him being killed by people knowing that he's acquainted with Spider-Man. A high-profile death from Spider-Man's supporting cast would change the way he views himself as a hero and change the type of risks he will take going forward. Needless to say, I think the MCU has opened a lot of new possibilities for Spider-Man. We are very excited to see where the movies take it from here, and we hope you are too. What's the main thing you most want to see incorporated into the MCU's telling of Spider-Man's story? Let us know in a comment below, and make sure you stay subscribed, turn on notifications so you're the first to see it every time we upload a new video for Spider-Man fans here on the Spider-Man Fan channel, where Spider-Man fans watch videos on a channel that's just for them. That's why it's called the Spider-Man Fan channel. Swing it on out of here!